Right off the bat, I feel confident in telling you guys that this video isn't going to be nearly as long as the original one, seeing how this game and the original Golden Sun have a lot in common. The Lost Age takes everything that the first game had, but cranks it up to 11. Now, I guess that's expected, seeing how this is a sequel, but Camelot went all out here. There's more Djinn to find, more weapons with crazy special effects, summons that are completely over the top, more party members to manage, new synergy to use in and out of battle, more bosses, more side quests, more dungeons, and instead of exploring one continent, you get to explore the entire world. And I think I finally understand why Camelot had to split Golden Sun into two games. One of this game's neatest features, or one of its most infamous features, depending on who you're asking, is the fact that you can transfer your save data from the first Golden Sun into the Lost Age. If you got a link cable, then the process is simple, and it shouldn't take you very long. But if you're like me and you don't own a link cable, then let me introduce you to the password system. You can transfer your save data from the original Golden Sun by going into a secret menu from the first game, and if you want to transfer all of your money, items, and Djinn, then you have to input a 6-long page of random characters. Let me tell you, it's not fun. I recently noticed that if you already have a clear data file in the Lost Age, you can transfer your character's levels onto a new game. Camelot calls this Easy Mode, I call it New Game Plus, which is what I'll be using for some of the footage of the beginning of the game. You might be wondering what exactly do you do in the Lost Age, seeing how the whole point of the first game was to make sure that the 4 elemental lighthouses don't get lit, but it ends with 2 of them getting lit. Simply put, you play as Felix this time around, and you make your way to the remaining lighthouses and light them. You'll come across new villages and learn more about Weyard, learn new synergy so you can properly explore the lighthouses, and we even learn character motivations for the protagonists and antagonists. Felix and Jenna are doing it because their parents are being held hostage. Oh yeah, by the way, you remember how we saw their parents get hit with that massive boulder 3 years ago? Well, it turns out that no one died during that accident, and Saturas and Minardi saved them. So, while they were assholes, they weren't evil per se. Or rather, they weren't evil enough to let people drown. Later in the game, we'll come across Minardi's sister, Karst, who also wants to ignite the lighthouses because their village is on the brink of freezing over. And actually, as it turns out, the people of the village took pretty good care of Felix and Jenna and actually took a liking to them. My God, these people aren't bad at all. I mean, yeah, they're assholes, but they're just trying to save their village. Okay, well, what about Alex? He wasn't in the first game for very long, but he has a larger presence here. He wants to see the 4 lighthouses get lit so that way alchemy can be restored so that he can see the lost civilization of man before it was sealed away in the lighthouses. One can say it was a Lost Stage. I've been going a week without a decent night of sleep. I am so sorry, everyone. My insomnia is acting up. His real goal, however, is that when the 4 lighthouses are lit, 4 lights will combine above Mount Aleph, forming the Golden Sun, which can grant seemingly endless power to anyone who basks in its light. Alex is really the only one who's evil. The other antagonists are just trying to do what they can to save their village. But here's the thing. What most people don't know is that the world is, slowly but surely, shrinking. The only way to stop it is, you guessed it, lighting the 4 elemental lighthouses. But wait. If we light them, then that could bring forth the end of the world. So our heroes have to choose whether or not to let the world slowly die, or risk ending it immediately in an attempt to save it. I can safely say that the story is a hell of a lot more interesting than the first one. The writing's got some more charm, and the characters are more fleshed out, and some of them even get these little personal moments where they're just talking, and I really like it. I do have some gripes with it though. Isaac was a solid protagonist in the first game, but now we see him talk in this one. Now, that doesn't bother me too much. What does bother me is that now Felix is the silent protagonist, despite the fact that we've seen him talk in the first game, and even talk sometimes in this game's story. Look, you're either a silent protagonist or you're not. There ain't no in-between. If you're going to talk, then talk. Honestly, that's just a nitpick, though. It's nothing that major. Another thing that bothers me is that we don't really get much information on Sheba. Or Sheba. I call her Sheba. You can call her Sheba. Let me call her what I want to call her. We see her at the end of the first game, and you can actually bump into her in Tolby. She says that she's joining Felix because it's her destiny, but there's clearly more to it than just that. Well, what is it then? We don't know for sure because it's never fully fleshed out. Almost like as if they had plans to make a third game not too long after this one and flesh out her story a bit more in that one. Still, despite the loose ends, I absolutely adore this game's ending. It has a great sense of closure, and I feel satisfied every single time I see it. There's a sense of finality and fulfillment in this game's ending that I feel was lacking in the first game, where in that game it just kind of ended. I'm happy to say that the story in this game is a significant improvement over the first one. As for everything else, well, let's get into it. Graphically, it's similar to the first game, and that's not a bad thing at all. It's still a decent looking game, and we still get to visit some visually interesting locations. The special effects in the battles still look great, and the summons are even crazier. More on those later, trust me. This game's music and sound quality is still top notch. The sound effects that play during battle still makes every fight satisfying, and the music by my boy Matoy is, once again, phenomenal. There's a lot of new tracks like Walking Forward with Determination that I absolutely love, but there's also some tracks that come back from the first game. I thought it was so cool how when you use all 4 characters from the first game in battle, Isaac's battle theme will play. It's a really nice touch. Of course, the gameplay is still just as fun as it was in the original. Exploring is still rewarding, combat is still engaging, the puzzles are still fun to figure out. Everything that made the first Golden Sun great is here, and in some cases amplified, but on the flip side, almost everything that held Golden Sun back is here, and in some cases, it's significantly worse. Take what I said earlier, for example, how instead of exploring one large continent, you get to explore the rest of the world. It's a great idea on paper. Actually, this game is much more open-ended than the first game. When you control Felix, you're thrown almost immediately into an open world. There are so many places you can explore right off the bat, and later in the game you even get a ship so you can travel to even more locations that you couldn't previously reach. I really do like the open-ended nature of this game and how even more places open up the further you get into the game. But here's my problem, and it's the same one that I had with the first game. There is no way to fast travel, which means that if you miss something, you have to, once again, travel all the way back to a previous location, find whatever it is you were looking for, then go all the way back. And look, this was a problem with the first game, yes, but at least in that game, there are a number of shortcuts that you can take, making backtracking less tedious. You can't do that in this game because of how large everything is. There are even points in the story where you have to backtrack. This whole issue could have been avoided if there was a way to fast travel or to teleport to other locations, and there are so many RPGs out there that have a fast travel system, even before this game came out, and I expected that this game, that's technically being a sequel, would fix this issue, especially given how open-ended and large this game is. You get a boat that makes traveling easier, yes, and after the Jupiter Lighthouse, you can use this boat to fly so that you can speed things along, but it still doesn't change the fact that there's no convenient way to get from one place to another. Even then, this flying boat can't even fly above trees or smaller mountains. Now, come on, if you're going to give us an airship, then give us one that flies higher than this. To me, it feels as if Camelot figured that the best way to make a sequel was to make everything bigger, and there wouldn't be anything wrong with that provided if they gave us a way to fast travel to compensate the larger world. Even the dungeon areas have gotten amplified. Now, I'll admit that there are even more creative puzzles and challenges here, and they are so much fun to go through, but after a while, they kind of drag. A number of dungeons are so large that just getting inside them is a dungeon of itself. Aqua Rock gave me a lot of shit during the first time I played through it, but in my most recent playthrough, it was Magma Rock that drove me up the wall. This place is huge, and there are so many areas that look identical to one another. Needless to say, I got lost in this place pretty frequently, and this made me notice how obnoxious the random encounters are. Well, kind of. Now, when you're in the overworld, or in caves, or in mini-dungeons, or really some of the other dungeons, the random encounters were pretty manageable. But when you've reached the elemental rocks, like the previous two that I just mentioned, they will drive you insane! I'm jumping the gun a bit, but this is personally why I prefer the first Golden Sun more to the Lost Age. Sure, the game isn't as long and it's not nearly as big, but I would rather have something that's short and sweet rather than something that's long and drawn out and overstays its welcome. Yeah, the game is shorter, yeah, the dungeons aren't as big, but for me, it makes it easier to come back to and easier to replay. I can count how many times I've played through the Lost Age with one hand and have fingers to spare. And that's because I feel like as if sometimes it's too big for its own good. Having an open world to explore is great, but backtracking in it isn't. Now, don't misunderstand me. I still think The Lost Age is a great game and a great follow-up to Golden Sun. It adds a lot of things that I'm perfectly okay with. Like I said earlier, there are more Djinn to find, and now each party member can hold up to 9 Djinn. And seeing how you now get 8 party members, and each member gets 9 Djinn, that bumps the number from 28 to 72. Okay, well, 28 of that 72 is from the first game, so I guess that really makes it 44, but I still think that's pretty impressive. And as you would expect, the Jin gives the player new synergy to use in battle, as well as making them more powerful and to use them for summons, and the Jin do what they did in the first Golden Sun game, and since there was nothing wrong with it, I don't see a problem with them not changing up the formula or anything. And I've got to say, the new synergy feels so good to use. Just take a look at one of my personal favorites right here. The summons have gotten a massive upgrade too. The summons in the first game were satisfying to use in battle, but in here, man, some of these are just, I have no words. I cannot describe to you how the summons are through a script and a shitty voiceover. Now, what's neat about some of these summons is that they require a mixture of Jin. So instead of using 4 Jin of the same element, you have to use a certain amount of Venus Jin and Mars Jin, for example. I noticed that the Lost Age strongly encourages you to mix and match Jin so you can experiment with different classes and synergy. Now, I appreciate it, but I still feel most comfortable giving the Jin to the characters that they share the same element with. That's just me. I mean, I know that makes me like a scrub in the Golden Sun community, but you know what? I'll just play the game how I want to play it, okay? So if you got a problem with that, I'm sorry. You can now find tablets that'll unlock new summons and caves and some optional dungeons, adding even more incentive for exploration. There's even 5 super summons that you get by defeating the new and frankly insane super bosses. There's 4 in total, and honestly, they're not too bad. Challenging, yes, but I was able to beat them on my first try, but, you know, to be fair, I was on the edge of my seat throughout the entire fight for each of them. That is with the exception of the Dullahan. Fuck this guy, by the way. My first time fighting him, it took me 2 hours. My first battle with the Dullahan took me 2 hours. The battle was 2 hours long, and I lost. 120 minutes. Just gone. I made it my mission to spend the rest of the day trying to figure out a strategy on how to beat this guy. I wasn't going to let him get away with beating me. I experimented with a number of Jin combinations, different summons, different weapons. I experimented for hours upon hours upon hours. And you want to know something? I did it. I freaking did it. I beat the Dullahan. I beat the hardest boss in the entire Golden Sun series in less than 5 minutes. I mean, I'm glad I beat him and everything, but I wasn't satisfied, you know? I wanted it to be an epic battle that had me on the edge of my seat for the entire fight, and it would last a bit longer than 5 minutes, but I think I overdid it. So what do you get for defeating the hardest boss in the series? Let me introduce you to my good old friend, Iris. Was it worth it? Yeah, I'd say so. Now, the best thing in this game, in my opinion anyways, is the fact that you can get the main party from the first Golden Sun game to join you on your quest. Now, why is that? Because unlike a lot of RPGs out there, you get to use everyone. You can form a party of up to 4 characters, and if that party falls in battle, the characters that you didn't have in your party will fill in. On top of this, you can swap out any member of the party at the start of every turn, meaning that you can use every single character in your party in any battle. And even then, if you don't touch a single character from the back burner, they still get experience after every battle, so that way they won't be too far behind from the main party. It goes back to one of the things that I absolutely loved about the first game, how it felt as if every character had a reason for being in your party. And this is something that a lot of RPGs get wrong, and Camelot nailed it again. This time with twice as many characters. The last thing that I want to mention is that you can now find materials to forge new weapons and armor, and if you're anything like me, you went well out of your way to get as many Excaliburs as possible. It makes the final boss significantly easier. Well, once when you're equipped with the gear that almost guarantees that each attack is not only a critical, but a howl. And if that's not the case, then you're going to have a hard time with the final boss. As silly as this sounds, this is another reason why I find this game hard to come back to. The rest of the game up to this point is pretty fair. It's more difficult than the first game, yes, but it's consistently challenging and more importantly, fair. The final boss, from my experience, is a ridiculous difficulty spike. Sure, the attacks are devastating, sure, the battle is long, and sure, it loves using Cruel Ruin, but the biggest flick in the dick is that it can turn off all of your Jin. Oh, what's that? You were going to summon something? Well, tough shit, because there go all your Jin. Oh, and what's that? You were gonna heal because I spammed Cruel Ruin twice in a row? Well, Gemstorm, bitch! Now, I'm not gonna lie. My first playthrough, I got stuck on this boss, and I had to grind in order to beat him. And if you remember anything that I said from my previous video, I praised Golden Sun because I never had a grind because I hit a wall. The Doom Dragon is a massive wall, and it's one that I never look forward to fighting whenever I have to play this game. Though, I'll be honest, I think it's so satisfying that when you do a certain amount of damage to one of the dragon's head, it will explode. Now that is rewarding. And, like I said earlier, I really like this game's ending. The music that it plays is heartwarming, and the way how all the characters celebrate their victory, and Isaac seeing his sick mom, it touches the heart, you know? To me, the ending feels rewarding because of how challenging the final boss was. I worked so hard to see this game's ending, and it did not disappoint in the slightest. So, maybe I was too hard on the Doom Dragon. Maybe the Doom Dragon isn't so bad after motherfucker! So, to recap, I still like the first game more. I feel as if Camelot went a little too crazy when designing some of the dungeons, and all of my problems with the sides of the world and the backtracking would have been fixed if they added a simple fast travel option. It may not sound like a lot, but to me, it holds the game back significantly. But the problems that I have with this game don't change the fact that I still love The Lost Age. While a number of the problems that I have with the first game are greatly amplified here, I feel as if the amount of new content makes up for it. And again, almost everything that made Golden Sun a great game is here and accounted for. I know a number of Golden Sun fans put this game over the original, and I could definitely see why. If you felt something was missing in the first game, chances are you'll find it here. It has more challenging dungeons, a larger world to explore, it's larger than the first game in just about every way, and it seems to feel more like a proper RPG. I get it, but again, I just find the first Golden Sun game easier to come back to. Its length is just right, the dungeons don't overstay their welcome, backtracking wasn't a huge problem for me, it worked almost flawlessly. But what you need to take away from this video is that Golden Sun The Lost Age is a damn good sequel, and it's one that I wholeheartedly recommend. After playing the first one, of course.
And just like Golden Sun, you can purchase The Lost Age on the Nintendo Wii U's Virtual Console. And I hope these two videos that I've made have gotten you interested in the IP, and I hope that you eventually support the official release. But this marathon is far from over, because the next time you'll see me, I'll be covering Golden Sun Dark Dawn. What many consider to be the Dark Dawn of the franchise. Some say it's just a watered-down JRPG, and that it does nothing new, and that the story isn't that interesting, and that it's too easy, and all this other stuff. And some people take it to the extreme that say that they wish that this game didn't even exist. Now, is this game really that bad? I don't know. Guess you'll find out next time. But it might actually be a little while for the next video, because I'm actually going to be going on an unexpected and sort of last-minute vacation to Seattle, Washington come September 3rd, and it won't be back until the 11th. So hopefully this video won't take 8 years to make. I doubt it, but with that said, my name is Ryan. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you guys so much for your patience. You know, I understand that a lot of people don't watch these videos, and I understand that my subscriber count isn't the highest, but you guys are really patient with me for the few of you that actually do watch this, and, you know, for those of you who care, thank you guys so much for your patience, and I hope you have a fantastic day. God bless. Toodaloo. Fuck this shit, man. I'm out.